that's just one of many, one of, hundreds of, little events or glitches in the system that happen, but actually are not glitches. They're there to serve you. The baby is there, the mother are there, the room is there. But there's something even more expansive than that. And that's the cosmic energy. Okay. It just so happens to be that you don't necessarily know that you are in the cosmic womb, not ready birthed out into the ocean of consciousness. We are the buoyancy aid. In other words, we have to learn to become like the buoyancy aid and just be buoyant with it. Because when you are buoyant, life becomes effortless, easy, and blissful. Okay? And when that happens, then you start to kind of really connect to everything, and you just feel like you're in the flow.
Welcome to another Martial Mind Power. I'm Jatinder with Sifu Lak, and today we're going to be sharing some wisdom bombs from the art of thinking without thinking. Sifu Lak, how you doing?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. Very good. So yeah, we're doing this early today, and it's freezing cold outside.
No, we're just all over the place today because it's a different setup. So I've just hit the random generator on Google, and the page that has come up with is 289.
289. Wow, you're on it today, man. You're on it today.
289. Let's see what we got. Feel the motion of the ocean. I suppose what's coming to our mind straight away on that one is what's happening this morning. We're just feeling, the motion of the ocean and just going along with the tide and what's happening. So a few little hiccups this morning, but it looks like we're, that thing they have, what do they call it? Is it a buoyancy or something in the water that just goes with, what's that thing called? Something like that. It just floats with the water, right?
Yeah. The buoy is
called that's it.
Yeah. Which happens to be buoyant.
That's it.
And it just goes up and down, up and down.
Ride the wave.
Yeah. So sometimes you just have to do that, right?
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Just be and just go with the body of water,
Yeah. Actually, a little story comes to mind on that one. So this is some time ago, coming back from Birmingham with my dad and my aunt in the car, and coming down the motorway, and the car broke down, right? So we pulled up to the side. Obviously, went to call the AA, and I think a police car pulled up as well and was asking what was going on. So they then escorted us to a little side road. There was like a little closed off side road that we could park just off the motorway. So we were able to tell the AA guy where to come. And, initially it was like panic. What should we do? Oh my God, this is going on. We're going to be late, this, that, and the other. And I sat there, took a breath, and I went, maybe the universe has created this time for you to just chill. Right. And I went, sat down and just relaxed. And they just ended up a really cool conversation with my dad and my aunt in the car. And then the AA guy turned up when he turned up, hooked us on, took us to the next service station. The guys came, picked us, dropped us back home. And it was just a long process in that kind of context. But it was just one of those moments when I realized, I thought, oh, okay, sometimes you just got to go with the flow. There's nothing you can do. You just got to be there for whatever's going on. So that's what's come up for me with this quote.
Good. But before we continue, I think we have to, for the listeners and the viewers, just show the picture on this page, right? So I'll hold the book up. So essentially, Feel the Motion of the Ocean is a picture of a lady that's submerged in the ocean, and she's just seems to be sitting there and contemplating. There's some cliffs in the background, but she's definitely in an ocean, and just looks like she's in a state of contemplation. The state of contemplation. All right, so just to cover that one. So yeah, so coming back to what you were saying, so you think it's just basically going with the flow, right? Whatever happens, when the tide rises, to rise with the tide, when the tide drops, to go with it. And and in some ways or respects, to use that as an opportunity to see the greater good in what's happening. Yeah. So when your car broke down, use that as an opportunity to take some time out, to relax, to actually spend some quality time and have a quality conversation with your dad and your aunt, and you had a wonderful time. And before you knew it, the AA guy turned up and interrupted you.
That's it. Yeah. That's a new way to think about it. Yeah.
You're like, oh, damn. He's just getting into this.
Yeah.
But it's funny, actually, you say that, because it's a beautiful way to have an outlook on life. It's a beautiful attitude. And the reason it's a beautiful attitude is because everything that happens, I'm a firm believer of this, and I've not just, all right, I don't want to use that word. I'm a firm knower and experiencer of this, that everything that happens does have a greater good, and is developing the ability to be able to see that. Even when you think, oh, why is this happening to me? Rather than say that, just say, oh, what's the greater good in why this is happening right now? And when you start to see that, you think, oh, wow, actually, you can completely change your perspective and the outlook on what's happening in that very moment in time, from one that is generally could be perceived as negative to one that is optimistic and positive. So, and this isn't, that whole, stay positive all the time malarkey, because I think that's overplayed, and I'm not a really big fan of just people focusing on
it's a false perception as well. I think that kind of thinking creates actually more harm than good in a way. We'll dig deeper into the perception side of that soon as well.
Yeah. So I've got to make a note of that perception, because if that's the only way you're going to look at things, you've got a lot of disappointment coming your way, right? And when I experience things where you think, let's just say, for example, I remember I had a lovely sports car, and the garage that I bought the sports car from didn't give me my papers on time. So it dragged on for a while, went on for a few months, and then I wanted to get service done on the car, and then I just turned around and said, well, for all the inconvenience, right, and all the admin that I've had to do, keep chasing you guys up, maybe you could throw a service in for free. And they did it out of goodwill. It was a high-end sports car. So at the same time, they also wanted to maintain a reputation, and it would cost a pretty penny as well. So, but they didn't have to, but they did it out of goodwill, because they valued my custom. But the point is, they didn't have to. I was nice about it, and I went along with it. And then I saw an opportunity to ask for a favor in return for all the inconvenience. It's nothing more than inconvenience. And they threw in a free service. They did not need to do that. Several $100 was in the States at the time. So, and that's just one of many, one of, hundreds of, little events or glitches in the system that happen, but actually are not glitches. They're there to serve you. Sometimes, you order something online, and it's okay, but it might have a scratch on it, or it's imperfect. Something's happened. Maybe the corner's dented or whatever, but whatever it is, right, it's still perfectly usable, but it's not perfect. So you call them up, and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, we'll send you another one. You might as well just keep that. With two, so you can give that to someone if you want, or you can just use the one that's not perfect and give the good one to someone else as a gift. That happens a lot. It's just loads of stuff. You lose count of these gifts that you're given, I really think they're gifts, even though you kind of at that moment think, oh man, right? So just something to bear in mind. Once you start to see things that way, um, life changes completely. So it's interesting because previously I've been referred to as unoptimistic, or optimist, or maybe too positive at times. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not the right word. That's not the right word. It's not optimism. And I couldn't figure it out until one of my friends, who's a dear friend of mine, who's a numerologist, she told me actually that I'm a pragmatic idealist. And I would have never coined those two words together. And that hit the nail spot on, because that's it. It's about, there's an ideology, but how do you make it happen simply? How can you make it, achievable and realistic? And that's what it's all about. So for me, even when I teach martial arts, essentially the catchphrase is make it work. But make it work not just with martial arts in a combative aspect, but martial arts in a living on a daily basis aspect as well, as we are here. And I think that's the most important thing. Make whatever situation is present itself work for you and work for others as well. It's not just about you. You're not the only person on the planet, right? So how do you honor someone else? You see, when you honor somebody else, all of a sudden, the dynamic changes, because they know that you're showing some genuine concern and care and kindness and compassion and expressing love through that. And that changes the relationship between people, and it goes in deeper. And that actually melts a lot of barriers. Okay. Especially hostility and any defense that might exist there. And the more you do it with people, the more they'll realize not only that you're harmless, but moreover that you actually care. So whether the situation is unresourceful or not, trying to drop that mindset and see what happens. It's an attitude.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I remember one of our conversations we had some time ago when we were talking about something similar, where you're talking about the three kind of things, in the sense of there's things you can kind of control, right, that are in your vicinity. So that might be, you decide to eat a particular food, for example. Yeah. The things that you can influence, right? So that might be you're with a group of people to say, what about if we try something like this, and you can influence the scenario situation. And then the things that you can't control, right? That you just have no influence over. There's nothing you can do. And that could be things like supply chain, right? You go to a restaurant, you order some food, but where that food's come from, what's been the supply chain, how it got there, is not in our control. Yeah. So we just got to have almost like that faith when we go about doing things, but also understand that there's going to be things that we can control, the things we can influence, and there's things that we can't do anything about. And like being part of that motion of the ocean is part of that, because it's like that thing, if you that buoy thing that we said that goes up and down with the water, if that's tied to something, that's all it's going to do. It's just going to go up and down, right? Yeah. But if it's not tied to something, it's going to float with the water, right? Yeah. And then if you put an engine on it, right, it can go in a certain speed. But then if you put like a steering on it, you can control the direction in which that buoyancy can go into, or whatever that thing is called. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's so bad. I don't know what it's called, right? But it's that thing, isn't it? It's like you're saying, well, what situation is it, and then how can you make it work with what you have?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I guess coming back to this koan, then feel the motion of the ocean. So that's what you think is about, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what comes to mind. Whether we're right or wrong, I don't know. We'll find out when you read it. But
well, we had a whole long conversation on it already. But actually, the thing is, the motion of the ocean is actually not really to do with the physical aspect of oneself. It's actually to do with our cosmic aspect of oneself, or the consciousness aspect of oneself. So feel the motion of the ocean is interesting because it takes you into that space. And that's the whole point of this koan being written in that way, is that you get this sense that you need to go with the ocean. But what if I was to tell you we are in an ocean right now, but this ocean is obviously not filled with water, and let's even say this, that it's filled with more than what you can consider air. We're in
Wi-Fi signals.
We're in an ocean of loads of Wi-Fi signals, okay, frying us alive, okay, and a whole bunch of other radiation, right, that's coming off our computers and all sorts of stuff, and microwaves and all that, and radio transmitters and wireless phones in the home, mobiles, whatever. But more importantly, we're in an ocean of consciousness. We are submerged in an ocean of consciousness. So what is this ocean of consciousness that we're in? Well, there's a really beautiful story about, and I think you might have shared this one before, about the two babies in the mother's womb. Yeah, where there's two babies in the mother's womb, unborn babies, but these babies are sentient, they're alive, they're in there, they're twins, right, basically, and they're talking to one another, and one baby says to the other, so this is it, it's just me and you. And the other baby says, nah, this has got to be more than this, right? This just can't be it. It just can't be me and you just here in this enclosed space. It's got to be more than this. And the other baby says, nah, this is it, this is it. We're here, there's nowhere to go, right? This is it. So, let's just enjoy ourselves here and, pass our time. And the other one says, no. I don't believe this is the case. I think there's more than this. I think there's a lot more than this. He fails to convince the other one, but regardless, his self-belief that there was more to it, not knowing that there was more to it, it was actually true, because an unborn baby hasn't actually been delivered into the world yet. So just because it's in the uterus, right, inside the mother, it's not actually emerged out into the world. But there's something far greater outside there that not only is outside of the mother, but the mother's in herself as well, right? And let's just say, just for a spatial reference, within a room, wherever she is in that moment, she is there, present at that time, right? Within that room, when the babies are being birthed, they're in the birthing room. And at that time, the baby is there, the mother are there, the room is there. But there's something even more expansive than that. And that's the cosmic energy, okay? It just so happens to be that you don't necessarily know that you are in the cosmic womb, not ready birthed out into the ocean of consciousness, right? Until you are. Now the feel the motion of the ocean is talking to our subtle spirit. And I call it subtle because it's subtle, not in the subtle body sense, but in the subtle sense that it's so delicate and a sensitive process to cultivate and to become attuned to that takes time. Okay. It's so, I don't want to use the word subtle again. It's so subtle. It's so difficult to attune into that part of yourself and therefore tune into the greater part of yourself, which is that ocean of consciousness, that it takes a lot of work. And this comes back to going inwards to go outwards. In order to tune into that ocean of consciousness, how do you feel it? How do you know it's there? Well, I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I experience it every single day. We're in it. Everybody's in it. And everybody's connected through it. It's like you said earlier, like the Wi-Fi waves, where the Wi-Fi waves are literally connecting the whole world through information. Well, there's a cosmic Wi-Fi that's going on, right? That's connecting each and every one of us. And that is the ocean of consciousness, if that makes you understand it easier. And every single sentient being is logged onto that cosmic Wi-Fi, has that cosmic Wi-Fi connection, but doesn't mean everyone's logged into it. Right? Have you got the password? Yeah.
Exactly.
So you need to get that password, you need to do the work, basically. And that work is through deep meditation, is to really connect to the subtlety of the unseen. Okay. And when you do that, you'll start to see. And you'll start to feel. So that's what this koan's about. And I wish everybody spent time to do that, because not only would everyone be connected to everything, you would feel everything anyone's ever felt. You'd know what everyone knows. Not necessarily kind of like from a information expertise purpose, but a knowing of how people are, what they're feeling at that moment in time. Are they suffering from something, or are they, whole, healed, and happy at that moment in time? You know that. That's what I mean. It's not that they studied A-level psychology and all of a sudden you know that as well.
It's like Superman, isn't it? It's like this picture just comes to mind when he's in space, right? And he's just there and he's listening to everything. I mean, when he first tuned into his superpowers, it was like a bombardment and it was noise everywhere and he couldn't filter out. It was just a proper headache and stuff, right? Until he managed to kind of tune it out. And then when he's like on his missions, he's like almost like doing this, but tuning into the bits that he needs to tune into, right? And then once he knows that's what it is, he could use his super hearing to kind of tune in on that cry for help and zone in and fly into it. And it's just an analogy we can use, right? And like to give it a visual of it's almost like that. Like, have you tapped into your superpower, right? So, and what's the password for it? Because that's probably what it's pretty much like, because this body is probably a filter as well. It is a filter as well, right? Because if you just let everything in, and that's why we have a brain, the way the brain's been designed, even by nature itself, is so it can, because it's like some crazy number that we're being constantly bombarded with, like so many millions of pieces of information are being bombarded on us. And that's why when we go to sleep, the brain is still trying to process things, and it comes up with all these kind of visuals and images of your day, trying to process the information. And then we have this kind of almost like momentary consciousness, which is designed to keep us present. But then when we let that go, we can start to process other information. So it's almost like the brain has got it's by design, it's been designed so you're not overwhelmed. Right. But it can become overwhelmed if the programming goes a bit wrong, or, if something, you've opened up something, you're not sure how to close it, or you think a certain way and you haven't learned the rules on how to manage your mind in that kind of context. So it's very fascinating and interesting that these things, when you start to think about it on that kind of, even like mental health notice, is that these things are there. But if you got the right guidance and training, you can not only hone in on yourself, but really hone in on yourself, And that's what's so fascinating about it, because that's what we're trying to do, is share that information to say that actually you can tune into it, get present, because once you're in the present, like you said, you take a stop moment, take a breath, and then be able to actually think about things and contemplate things in a more with a clear mind.
Absolutely. And that Superman analogy that you gave, and my favorite superhero is Superman. But that's born in the 70s, growing up in the 80s, in fact, the first Superman I think came out in 79. Right. So, the
I was watching it. I was watching a new series last night. That's why it was so fresh in my mind.
the one on BBC.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. And I'm glad they've kind of moved the story on. But the interesting part of it is a bit of a spoiler alert. So if anybody wants to watch the new Superman series on BBC iPlayer,
it's got Superman and Lois. I will give it a little unplug. We'll give you a plug to it. What's going on?
Well, you see, I really think the reason superheroes exist is there to remind us that we're all superheroes. We've all got that ability to do that, not necessarily in this physical domain, but we do in our mental and spiritual domains. Yeah. And you have that, right? This is what we're talking about. Body, mind.
And that all goes into like the hero's journey side of things, just for anybody who's interested. Like Joseph Campbell, I think, is a hero's journey side of it, which is to do with, us as like we're just living our life. We come across a challenge. Yeah, we're bombarded with that challenge. We eventually learn about it, overcome it, and we go to our next phase in life. And that's like the hero's journey they talk about in its simplest terms. There's a lot more to it, right? But it's exactly what you said, that the superhero element of it, it reminds us, it taps us into that, right?
Yeah. I really think that that's the whole point behind it all. And if you imagine, if you think about the people that have imagined to create those programs, they're tapped into a higher intelligence, right? Because those ideas are very difficult to come up with, ideas that never been thought before by your average.
Yeah.
But so there's a greater intelligence working there. And I really want to kind of hone in on that visual you gave when Superman first kind of, as a part of coming of age and rite of passage into becoming Superman, he discovers he's got this power to fly, and he goes up into the stratosphere, straddling space, and he can just hear these every single person speaking, cry for help, cry for joy, everything, not just on Mother Earth, in the whole cosmos, echoing in his mind, driving his head nuts, just giving him a mad headache. One thing I want to say is more than half of our thoughts are our own, right? They're psychic thoughts. They're thoughts that are given to us, that we're receiving from outside of us. Most of these ideas that come from high intelligence, where you think, eureka moment, aha, you have that penny drop moment, however you want to call it. They're not yours. They come from outside you because you tried to think about it, but you couldn't. And then the moment you relaxed, it came to you because that moment you were receptive. Now,
there's another side of that for anyone who's thinking, that doesn't make sense or anything like that. But there's a deep level of rapport that can take place in the sense of matching the frequency and almost like the other person. I'll just share a quick story here. We went to one of these seminars, right? I'm not going to mention the person's name because they got trademark on the name, so they might tell us off, right? But we're at this seminar, and there's like an exercise we're doing where there's three of us standing together, and one of the people had to think of something that they had done and enjoyed, and they had to hold the posture and position of that situation and scenario. The other person had to look at that and then try to mimic it and copy it, trying to tune into that same type of thought process. And the third person was watching them both to match the person who's trying to match him, make sure they are actually in a similar position to kind of feel or see exactly what's going on. I remember doing this exercise and doing this and standing, whatever, and I'm doing it. And what kept coming to my mind was just this like blue sky kind of falling. And I said, it's like parachuting. And the girl that I was with, she was like, nah. I was like, okay, trying it. And kept doing it. I said, it's parachuting. It's definitely a parachute. And she said, nah. I go, no, what is it? She goes, skydiving, right? and the other, myself and the other lady started laughing, like thinking, like, I was able to pick up some situation scenario, like why was this guy coming up? And then even in situations where you've seen like there was this program where they had this 2 rooms, right? And they had one person in the other room, and they had like this glass thing in the middle, and another person on the other side. The one person had to think of a situation, a scenario, keep focusing on that, walk around the room, do whatever. And the person in the other room that could see it, they could see each other as well, and they just had to copy the other person, right? Just do exactly what they're doing, and then try to make note of what's coming to mind. And in this scenario, it was like a baby crying or something like that was coming up, and the person was sharing, and that's exactly what was going on. The other person was talking about how they were remembering the baby or something crying, right? So there is this ability, and it's also probably linked to mirror neurons, right? Which is basically our ability to feel what the other person's feeling. Because when somebody laughs, for example, the same part of our brain lights up, so we can actually experience that. When somebody's sad, the same part of our brain kind of wires up. So when we're in situation scenarios, if we're looking at other people doing what they're doing, the same part of the brain starts to fire up. So it starts to ignite the same feelings and emotions that are going on in the other person. And it's a lot deeper than that, but this is surface level, just sharing that there is that kind of mirror neuron element. So what Lax is sharing about picking up on thoughts that are not necessarily yours, is because your mirror neurons are firing off as well, which can then ignite those same kind of things. And you're thinking, this doesn't feel right. Is this really me, or where's this coming from? Yeah. And it could be things you've seen, there's stuff you watched, that can happen. There's a play of that. So there's a constant bombardment of information happening, and it needs like guidance and training in order to kind of start to filter that, channel that, and there are lots of studies going on into this space. Yeah. So we're not just making this up. We've seen a lot of things around this, which are, some of it's coming to mainstream, some of it's not. But there is definitely work being done to investigate this stuff even more. So it's not like we're just making it up.
So thank you for sharing that, because I think for listeners that may be skeptical or not aware of these kind of topics, it could be a bit out there. You're 100% right. But at the same time, these studies exist to prove spirituality and to prove that this phenomena that exists out there, that people claim out there, and they're trying to prove it. There was a quote, I can't remember it word for word, by Einstein, that said something along the lines of science is there to prove spirit, right? And therefore the nature of spirit and spirits, cosmic laws. And the thought, the explanation you gave about being able to feel what other people are feeling, we know laughter is contagious, right? And if neuroscience is only just picking up on these mirror neurons now, you're 100% right. You said it's surface level. The spirit's working below that. Okay, it's not your motor neurons or just your physical element that is detecting what's happening, or is translating spirit into the physical, your physical being, so you can experience it through your sensory perception of the world, so you can actually have that physical experience of the spirit, or your spirit, or thoughts. Okay, because how do you quantify what is a thought? Now Now, when you pick up a thought of someone that's near you or next to you or in front of you or someone you're talking to, but you pick up what they're thinking but not saying, right? Or you pick up what someone is feeling or experiencing or thinking about in another room or in another town or another country across the world, right? That's transduced thoughts. Now, ask you, all your audience, a question. Have you ever thought of somebody, right, that's several thousand miles away or several hundred miles away, and they call you at that moment? I'll put my hand up. JT, yeah?
Yep.
All right.
That happened just yesterday. I was talking to a client yesterday, and I messaged her, said when we're booking our next call in, and she was telling me that the moment that text message came through, she was thinking, "Oh, should I talk to JT or not? What should I do?" And the message came through, right? So it happened just like she was telling me just yesterday.
My wife is my soulmate, and every time I think about something that's relevant to her, or relate to her, she'll call me, or vice versa. And it's sometimes I'm literally just going to pick up the phone and it'll ring and it's her. And it's like,
Wow.
flick, blah, you know. It's just unreal.
It does get freaky, isn't it? Sometimes it's just beyond understanding.
You know, one of our really dear mutual friends, Marilyn, you know, she always says, I always say to her, you can't make it up. And, you know, she's amazing. She's got skills in this space. And we always say you can't make it up, and it's become her catchphrase. You can't make it up, right? Because so many people tell her, "Hey, Marilyn, right? You can't make this up, but this is what happened," right? That is become a motto. And it's amazing because she has these, you know, synchronicities all the time. Now, going back to that moment where, you know, you've got Superman with all these freaking billions, trillions, gazillions of thoughts hitting his head, and he's just getting a bit of a headache. Well, you know, he's at that moment become receptive to the ocean of consciousness. Imagine if seeing it that way, okay? So he's just become receptive to the ocean of consciousness, and all of a sudden, right, he now realizes that I need to calm this chaos down, calm this noise down in my mind. And in order to calm that noise down in the mind, so that one, it doesn't, you know, create a headache for him, and to make it
manageable, yeah,
make it manageable, to make it bearable, right? Because he's, you know, at this moment, it's like, well, you know, complete overload in his mind, and he realizes he needs to quiet it all down. So he does. He quietens all those thoughts down. Now, it doesn't mean those thoughts have disappeared or those messages have disappeared. They're still there. But what he's managed to do is to say, okay, let them pass. Let them carry on passing by. I'm not going to be attached to every single thought, but let them do their thing. And I'm going to tune into the ones that I need to tune into. So he becomes the antennae for SOS calls, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he says, you know, so when his family are in a dire emergency, or, you know, some buildings collapsing and it's got, you know, people in there, or some cat stuck up a tree and he goes and rescues the cat, whatever, right? He knows, so he goes, you know, and does the thing. Now, meditation is exactly that. That's what you're aiming to do, is to connect to it, but only to the bits that you want to connect to, because it's all going through us like the Wi-Fi signals. Now, imagine we're just talking about a Wi-Fi signal where you think it's a wave. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or any other streaming service, audio or video, that's being streamed over Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is not just a wave. It carries intrinsic information, which is translated into audio, video, or both, right? Audio and video, exactly. So, right? So
And people don't think about, people don't actually think that this data is being carried through a signal and a frequency.
Yeah,
right?
in a wave. That's like
insane.
That data is the wave is the data, right? And
isn't that woo-woo? Isn't that like what the hell? That's just
you've just had a mind blown moment there, right? Like, oh shit. right. So that's what's happening, right? We are when people say we are bombarded with information, no, you don't know the least of it, right? Information is permeating through our bodies, through our minds, through our emotions, through our spirits, right? Everywhere we go, but we can't necessarily tune into it. If you go stand outside NASA, right, and you're exposed to their Wi-Fi signals, you're not going to become wiser because you're standing outside NASA getting all their Wi-Fi signals and all that data, right? Or you stand outside Oxford University or Cambridge University and soaking up all their Wi-Fi. It's not going to make you more clever. What's going to make you clever is, can you tune in and tap into that intelligent data? Yeah. That's what this cosmic ocean of consciousness is, right? It's here. We're already trying to fabricate and replicate that on a physical level, which we have done already.
Max, I've got a question for you, and I think it's kind of almost like at this moment a personal belief as well, that, like, you know, when you have people who struggle with some people, not everybody, obviously depending on the situation, right, where they're struggling, almost like not necessarily people who call themselves empaths or anything, but that kind of scenario when there are people out there that can't manage or find it hard or very difficult to be in situations and scenarios and around people and whatnot, right? How much of that element is it that they're being bombarded with this information that they've somehow managed to learn to do when they were younger, and they haven't quite learned how to switch it off and tune it out as they've gotten older, right? I think there's an element of that goes on with, like, this is like a slightly different conversation, but I just wanted to weave it in just in case anyone listening can find it useful, that maybe, like saying, meditate, calm down, tune in on what you need to tune in, and try not to get bombarded by these other things, which maybe we haven't learned to process out. No?
So the thing that empaths suffer with on an energetic level, on a spirit level, is that they feel everything. Right? They're tuned into everything, whether they realize it or not. And the thing that they're most cognizant of is people suffering, or suffering of all sentient beings on Mother Earth. That's what they feel. They feel the pain over the pleasure more. And therefore they want to help. And they may feel that it's too much. Where do I start? What can I do? I'm not enough. I can't do anything. I can't make a positive impact. And they feel helpless and hopeless and not enough. So they degrade and denigrate themselves and belittle themselves and become little. And then they might cower and withdraw and hide, or shy away. And again, I'm just using an extreme example, right?
Yeah. Every situation scenario is different. This is just
absolutely. and that could cause, mental health issues, physical health issues, spiritual health issues. So for empaths, or people that are attuned to and can feel a lot more than they realize, the best piece of advice I can give is to just be the change you want to see in the world and go put that out there. Because when you do that and people start to see, hey, JT, man, I love something, you're glowing, man. What's going on? You're doing something. What you're doing? What's your secret? What will happen is people will notice, but not necessarily know what that change is. And they'll inquire, they'll self-inquire. And that's when you help them by teaching them, That's when you help them raise their consciousness by sharing the teaching. Because the flip side of that is you force what you know on other people, right? So you're forcing information, no matter how amazing and wonderful that information is, how useful it is, how great it is for the world and everyone on it and Mother Earth. But if you're forcing something down someone's throat, their initial reaction is to say, "Get away from me." Yeah. Right. And they become hostile, and the defenses go up, and they don't want to listen to what you're saying because you've not done it in a nice way. You've not done it in a way that they're going to be receptive. Receptivity has to come from the self. Yeah, you have to become receptive to learning. So if you have something that you want to share into the world, you have to go and become it first. And you've got to be a shining beacon of light, because guess what? If you imagine everyone's like moths, they're going to come, flying to you.
To the light. Yeah,
to the light. And this isn't a light that, is going to burn the moths, right? It's going to turn these moths into something even more beautiful, right? So this is the idea, right? Of be the change. It was Gandhi that said, be the change you want to see in the world. For empaths and people that suffer with feeling the pain of the world and pain and suffering that's happening, just do what you can, right? Just do simple things, and put your best side forwards. That's all you can do. Bruce Lee, one of my favorite quotes, and I repeat this when I get the chance, is famously said, "Simply to simplify." And now it's one of his lesser known quotes, to be honest, but it's my favorite quote out of all quotes, because when it boils down to it, when things get complicated, and hey, this world is quite a complicated place, the only way to manage sometimes is simply to simplify. Just make it easy, right? Make it easy. Make it easy for yourself, and also make it fun for yourself. What's the funnest way to do something? Right? And just get on with it, crack on with it, and go. Remember, if you're going to do something fun, then you gotta take the joy out of it as well. So have fun, enjoy it. That's the whole point. I don't mean take the joy out of it. I mean, take joy from it.
Well, yeah, no, thank you for sharing on that. For anyone who, finds that useful, do explore that. And those are, any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll do what we can to help in any way we can to help. Thank you for sharing that, Lax.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So, there's loads of different meditation techniques and so on that you can do to connect to the ocean of consciousness, so you can feel the motion of the ocean of consciousness. We even have on our digital dojo, we've got so many meditations on there as well that people can go through as well to try and help them get in tune with themselves. So you could use that as a practice. In the Master Your Life book, there's a whole section on stillness, which goes through the 4 different stages from mindfulness all the way to meditation. Mindfulness is just your foot in the door. Okay. And meditation is when you're really kind of swimming deeper into that ocean of consciousness. And so there's that resource is also available. And again, this isn't an upsell. This is just for those listeners and viewers that are wondering, well, how do I do this? Where do I go to do that? And there's just many different roads to Edinburgh, as I like to say. Just pick one. There's lots of people that are teaching meditation. But remember, if you want to achieve self-realization, and even better still, God realization, and I'm referring to that intelligent ocean of consciousness as God. Okay. So if you was wondering what is God, right? You could
what isn't God?
More importantly, what isn't God? Yeah, right. Remember, we're submerged in it. We are it. Yeah. You can
Oh, oops.
speak. What was that?
Buoyancy aid. Sorry, I hate the word on Google just because I wanted to close a loop in my mind and it said buoyancy aid is what we were referring to earlier on.
Buoyancy aid, yeah. So if you want a buoyancy aid towards God realization, you need to go to someone that's got it. They're there. They're God realized, right? And they come well recommended, right? They are an embodiment of the thing that they preach, the thing that they teach. Only then, if someone's got it, can they give it to you? So don't go to anyone that hasn't got it, that says, yeah, I can teach you meditation, but I'm not a reflection of that. I'd like, one of a beautiful teaching that I learned recently is godly people act godly. So there's a certain way about the way they express themselves, and we all are part of the ocean of consciousness. Therefore, we're all gods in our own right. We are all superpowers. We are all, Greek gods. Or, I don't know if you've seen Love and Thunder. With Thor, for instance, right? Coming back to superheroes, and you've got all these, the committee of gods, and there's different gods for different things. But we are our own gods as well. If we've got the light of the ocean of consciousness in us, therefore that makes us it as well. We are part of her and she's part of us. Anyway, so go to someone that can give it to you. And one good sign is godly people act godly. So you'll be able to tell from the way they act and their actions and behaviors, their morality, their ethicality, and so on, that if they're the real deal. And it's really for you to choose someone that really resonates well with you. You'll know. Now, historically, that's called a guru. Yeah. You need to find your guru. And now some people say, oh, this is not the age of the guru. And I disagree. I disagree. I think it's always the age of the guru. And I'll tell you why it's always the age of guru, because gurus don't have to be living. Guru spirits can have attained what's called Mahasamadhi. That means they've attained the great meditation. It's called Samadhi, means deep meditation. Maha means great. So Mahasamadhi means attaining the greatest of all meditations, which is you are one with the ocean of consciousness. But their spiritual intelligence can still guide you, right? Because remember, we already spoke about this, right? You can get thoughts externally, and 50% of your thoughts are not, over 50% of your thoughts are not even yours. Therefore, you can be guided by someone that's not even alive. Now, this is a moment, yeah. So just something for you to think about, that a guru could be someone that has long passed. A guru means, gu means darkness, and ru means remover of. So it's a remover of darkness. But really, it's also, to understand light, you have to have darkness. So therefore, if you remove the darkness, you can appreciate the light, right? And that's the light of the ocean of consciousness. So it's all related, and it's all saying the same things. So your guru that you choose, that's got what you want, that can guide you towards self-attaining that as well, and self-realizing that, is the person, living or not living, that will guide you to that, because they've already got it. Okay. So you can find a living person that can help you with that. You can find a person that's past, that can help you with that has left some teachings that helps you understand how to get there. There's loads, right? There's loads of different ways. It's not necessarily religious. It's spiritual. If you want to put a word on it, it's spiritual, right? And it's a practice of cultivating self-realization. Self-realization is connecting the body, the mind, and the spirit into one. Okay, it's realigning it all. ultimately is simple, right? You are mind, body, emotion, and spirit. So if you disconnected any of those, you're not going to be in full health in one or more of those areas of yourself. So just something to bear in mind, okay? Just something to bear in mind. And hopefully with some of the science and the evidencing that we've shared today and JT weaved into the equation today, you have a better understanding of the achievability of it all and the reality of it all, or unreality of it all, right? However way you want to look at it, right? And that way, it's down to you then to decide, is this something I want to cultivate in this lifetime? And if so, do you want to start working on it? My strong recommendation is, from my own personal experiences, I wish I'd started when I was a little kid. I wish I had realized and met my guru before, early, because I would have been a long way further. But I had to experience what I had to experience in order to do it in this timely manner as things have transpired. So no regrets. It's just the way it is. So I was ready when I'm ready. So likewise, so will you be when your time is right. And if you don't feel it's right, it's okay. Doesn't matter. No big deal. Just keep on flowing until then, right? Right.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So do us the honors, Lex.
Do the honors. Yeah. All right. Let's read this koan then. So feel the motion of the ocean. Imagine being a deep water fish in the dark depths of an ocean. Would you know you were in a massive ocean of water? Probably not, because you would not know what it feels like to be in an ocean. So you have nothing to compare it against. Everything that exists and doesn't exist lives in an ocean of consciousness. It is an energy that permeates all at the same time. To realize the presence of the ocean of consciousness we are submerged in, we can train our spiritual faculties to detect the energy by doing energetic and light work, like Reiki and Chi healing, as an example. When you get in tune with the ocean of consciousness and learn to go with the motion of the ocean of consciousness, as and when it changes directions, you learn to get in the flow. Notice how everything happens with perfect buoyancy, effortlessness, and ease. In Chinese martial arts, this energy is called qi or ki. And in ancient Hindu scriptures, they called it prana or life force. Without this flow of energy, everything ceases to be.
Wow. That buoyancy is everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, man. Of course it is.
Wow.
It's not only is it a safety aid, but it's also an indication that, hold on, remember to be buoyant.
That's it. Oh, fantastic, Sifu Lak. Thank you for sharing that. For anybody who's interested, they could get a hold of the book, The Art of Thinking Without Thinking. It's available on Amazon, or check out martialmindpower.com, whatever you decide. On that note, Sifu, I think this is the end of today's podcast. Anything before we sign off?
What would I say? You know what? This conversation really literally started off where I think we should end, and that is the boy, right? Or the boy. What did you look up?
Aid.
Buoyancy aid. The buoyancy aid. We are the buoyancy aid. In other words, we have to learn to become like the buoyancy aid and just be buoyant with it. Because when you are buoyant, life becomes effortless, easy, and blissful. Okay. And when that happens, then you start to kind of really connect to everything and you just feel like you're in the flow. And then everything will happen superfluously. So allow yourself to be like the buoyancy aid, right? And become buoyant.
Wow, that's a pen drop. Fantastic. Okay, super likely. Thank you very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Tune into the next one. And until then, signing out.